Welcome to Simply Happy Conversations, a podcast that teaches you how to create a clutter-free, functional and simply happy life. I'm Narelle King, a professional organiser who supports families with practical steps to simplify their lives and create a more organised home. I'm passionate about supporting neurodivergent families and individuals like myself. Do mornings, homework and bedtime feel like the same ADHD hurdles on repeat? Struggling with brushing their teeth, getting dressed or even showering? In this ADHD series on Simply Happy Conversations, I'm joined by Sharon Collon, founder of The Functional Family. She's a mum and wife to ADHDers, and she's supported over 40,000 families with ADHD as a coach and parenting consultant. She also has an informative podcast, ADHD Families. Sharon shares with us ways to tackle predictable ADHD problems, like I mentioned at the start, getting dressed, maybe brushing teeth or showering, through family support, empathy and collaboration. Sharon also shares with us smart environmental tweaks that we can make to make life easier and a whole family lens that we need to encompass when we're looking at ADHD. This conversation is a video recording that you can watch on YouTube. Let's jump into this Simply Happy guest conversation with Sharon and identify predictable problems and ways to plan for them. Today on Simply Happy Conversations, I'm talking with Sharon, the founder of The Functional Family. I've asked her back as a guest for our ADHD series because she's a mum and a wife to ADHDs, and she's supported over 40,000 families with ADHD as a coach and parenting consultant. And she is going to be sharing how to approach predictable problems and ways to plan for them. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you so much for having me here, Narelle. I'm excited for our chat today.
I know, it's so great to have you back again. Like, as I've said to the other guests that have come on for this series, it was basically those ones around ADHD, which are the most downloaded over the last 3 years. So it's great to have you back and to be able to share some of these tips and things that families really need. So let's start though, just so people can get to know you if they don't already know you. If you could only have 2 apps on your phone, what would they be?
Oh, I love this question. Well, firstly, I use the Reminder app on my iPhone, and I know that Samsung had one too, but I use it because it connects to Siri. So like a lot of people with ADHD, I get my best ideas in the shower, right, where I can't write things down. But it's where my brain downloads and I think of all the things that I have to do. And so what I like about the Reminder app is I can go, hey, S-I-R-I, I'm not going to say a name.
Oh, good. I'm glad you did it.
Add this to my to-do list, add this to my to-watch list, and so as she goes ahead and adds that. And so that ability, and also just so people know, you can do it via location and you can also do it via people. So you can set yourself reminders via location. So you can say, hey, when I'm going past this address next time, remind me to get fuel. Or when I see my brother again, remind me to ask how his dog is. So I lean on that so heavily because there's too much going on up here and I forget lots of things. So I use that app, and that is definitely one of my apps that I would use every day. The next one would be Goblin Tools. So Goblin Tools, I'm sure you've spoken about it on this podcast.
I've actually done a whole podcast on it, but I think it was over a year or so ago. Yeah.
Yes, well,
I love it.
And it's incredible. And as you would probably have explained in your podcast, it breaks things down. Now, that is one of the fundamental pieces of advice that parents get for kids with ADHD. Break down tasks into simple one-step instructions. But that's a whole other brain space bit that it's occupying up for us parents. So outsource that to AI. So use Goblin Tools. And also I like in Goblin Tools that you can keep breaking it down. So depending on what your capacity is in that time, and also that you can time estimate, which as an ADHD coach, I love things that help us estimate time to develop time awareness, because I know that can be a challenge for a lot of people. So I like to be able to estimate. And what I've discovered through using Goblin Tools is that I am profoundly wrong when I estimate my time. I am such a time optimist. I'm like, yes, I can record that whole course and that podcast episode in 4 hours. Let me do it. It's actually, I've worked it out that tasks take me about 4 times longer than I think they do. Now, you can see how that would cause people a lot of hiccups if you're a time optimist and you think that you can get lots done. So it helps me schedule effectively and helps me be able to support my family to do the same. So it's really cracker tool, and it's free. Why not? Both of those.
Yes. Yeah. And it's Australian, isn't it? As an Australian developer with ADHD, I'm under that actually developed it. Oh, I think so. Yeah.
I feel like that needs to be the next guest on this podcast. That would be cool.
Yeah, that was like a link through a client of mine who recommended it because she knew the person and it was something to do with ADHD. So, yeah. But I completely agree, especially around that time and the prediction. I love how the reminder, but I haven't thought of using that for the petrol station when I'm going past something I need to do because I'm always forgetting to get petrol. So what is it why is it that supporting families with ADHD is important to you?
I absolutely love my job. And the reason that I do and how I got into this is I married an incredible man. And he has ADHD, like you can't miss it. It's very hyperactive in presentation. And he has an incredible brain. I fell in love with him because of his brain, and he is super fast, really quick processor, really like mad scientist vibes in terms of like things that he can do with his brain. But his story wasn't full of people falling in love with him because of his brain. It was actually full of exclusion, trauma, never being invited to a birthday party, being banned from the classroom, and having all sorts of awful things happen. And so when we went on to have our gorgeous little boys, we have 3 boys, and they're all very similar to my husband. And I was just looking at them going, well, they're not going to have that story. Like, they're not going to have that trauma. There's no way. Like, I'm changing this for my little guys. And so I got to work and I realized that I ran so many experiments and failed spectacularly and formally studied and did all the things. I've been doing this for well over 17 years now. And I really think that the part that we're missing is the family support. We get a lot of child therapies, like we all put our kids into OT and psychology and speech and all of the stuff. But what no one's doing is supporting the whole family. And this is why I went on to train as a family's ADHD coach. And it's the next level up in terms of electives and study, is because I recognize that the part of the puzzle that we were missing, number one, because ADHD is largely genetic, right? So if the child has it, chances are the parents do too, one or both. And perhaps they didn't get the right support around executive function skills and didn't create the right systems to support them because we didn't deal with it very well back in my generation, like when we were growing up, like we didn't support it properly. So we needed to look at everyone in the family. And it's not just about loading the child up with therapies. It's about how the family runs, where joy is coming from, how they're running their household, like what systems and scaffolding do they have to allow everyone in the family to shine. Because it's a lot. Like I live it every day too. Like I navigate it every day, and I can, like, as especially fresh because it's school holidays here at the time of recording, a lot happens. And so we need to support the family unit. Everybody in the family needs to feel supported and needs to feel heard and needs to feel welcome and loved and valued in the family.
Yeah. Do you know, it just brings back that goblin tools, how you said it's great because it breaks it down into tasks and then you can go lower. Imagine as a parent, I remember the OT telling me, oh, just break those, dot points down for your son. And it's like, well, hang on a second. I didn't even know what they are myself. So, having that tool is going to actually help the whole family. And as you've said, it's supporting the family because more than likely the parents have ADHD too, and they're going to struggle with those executive functioning skills, aren't they?
100%. And I am very motivated by anything that makes life easier and more streamlined and creates a little bit more space for fun, because family life today is busy. I do not believe that our parents' generation felt like they needed to quit their full-time job so they could just focus on school notes, right? Like I feel like I need to quit my full-time job just to manage school notes. So we have a lot coming at us, like every day of the week. It's like wear the different coloured shirt and like, there's so much coming at us, and we're trying to work and navigate and pets and family life and appointments and all of this stuff. So anything that can buy a bit of time, capacity, and create a bit more space, I am totally here.
Yeah, definitely. So so just touching on executive functioning, how does that affect then individuals with ADHD?
So I love to work off the Brown model of executive function.
Yep.
Now, the reason that I like it is because it's quite simple, and I think we can get too weighed down. So that is activation, focus, effort, emotion, memory, and action. Now, it's, you can see what comes on, if you have a look at that online, there is some great information about that. But we know that those are the things that are commonly challenges with ADHD. Now, everyone's unique, and this is a little cautionary tale to parents too, because how everyone experiences ADHD is so different, right? And ADHD doesn't come to the party alone. It also brings friends, right? In my family, there's autism, Tourette's, OCD, ODD, sensory processing, so like all of these different things. So everyone's having their own unique experience of ADHD. And the reason that I say that to parents is sometimes we can assume that our child is having the same experience that we are and create strategies around what we want. But that's not how our child is experiencing it, because our experiences shape us. What level of executive function challenges we have for that category can shape us, and also our trauma can shape us, and our co-occurring conditions can shape us. And so this is the cool part about uncovering for each individual what actually works for that individual. Now, parents usually, when they come to work with me, they talk, the media talks a lot about of focus. Like there's a lot of like ADHD, they can't focus. Like I forgot my wallet. Like like all of that stuff that social media jams down our throat. But it's not usually what parents come to me talking about. They come to me about emotion, about managing frustration, stress tolerance, being able to regulate. And sometimes the activation thing, so getting started, that ignition and momentum piece, getting started and then keep going. And so that's, we know that ADHD is executive function challenges. How people experience it can vary a little bit. But understanding what your family's profile is and where they're at with executive function, because I very much view them like muscles that can be built, right? So you can develop skills and frameworks and scaffolding around executive function to make it work for you, and stop beating our heads against a brick wall for stuff that we're not good at. Like I'm terrible at maths, like absolutely terrible. So I'm not going to waste my time trying to do my books and finances and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to outsource that crap to someone else who's that's their zone of genius. And that's what we can do for families as well. Like, okay, what bits are we strong at? Where are the strengths that we have as a family? Can we pull that across to some of the challenges that we're experiencing rather than trying to reinvent the wheel every single time? And because success leaves clues, we often know that when we have a successful strategy in one area for one challenge or one predictable problem, as we're going to talk about, it often plays out in lots of ways. So every family, and this is like what I get the most excited about, every family usually has a playbook of things that work for them across multiple different areas and multiple different challenges. And once you uncover what that playbook is and you equip them with tools and strategies for their tool belt, it is repeatable and it is measurable, and it just saves a whole lot of stress.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And I completely agree that once you sort of understand everyone's, like, their strengths, the things that they're challenges, it makes life a lot easier, doesn't it? So what about then the predictable problems? Because I think now, I'm sure I shared it in one of our other chats that we've had, is that was the first time I heard you was talking about predictable problems and how to alleviate one of them. And ours was around going out to the shops, and I drew the picture, and it was just a little thing. And I used to have that in the car so I could draw where we were going, and it was a little circle thing that you actually suggested, and it worked. It was so well. But what's some of the other predictable? So that was obviously around where we were going, what we were doing, and what it was going to look like if there was going to be multiple stops, which I love to do. And so it would also keep me on task. But what's some of the other predictable problems that you see with families you work with?
Okay. Should I talk a little bit about what a predictable
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
First, so A predictable problem is something that happens day in, day out. And you will know, so usually for families that I work with, the meltdowns, they're distressing, right? But most families actually cope with those pretty well. And there's no real strategy for once your child's in meltdown. It's really move to safety and offer connection when you can, right? They're already dysregulated. It's too late to do any strategy, right? A predictable problem's a little bit different. A predictable problem is something that happens every day. So and your body, you'll know it's a predictable problem because regardless of whether your child throws that predictable problem that day, you'll have a tense reaction. Your nervous system will be tensing, or, you can do it for yourself too. You can have many predictable problems because humans are pattern-making machines. Like we pattern things, right? And so let's talk about like an example. My son having the predictable problem of not wanting to brush his teeth. Right? So he doesn't want to do it. And so we know that happens more than once. It happens every day. And I'm tensing even when I suggest the idea. He's anticipating that there's going to be some sort of standoff, and it puts everyone into a dysregulated state. And so that is what we would label a predictable problem. It's happening every day. And so when we've got lots of predictable problems, which most families do, like every family does, there's lots of things that we run in and we're just somehow waiting for it to get magically better, right? We're just like, just they'll grow out of it, or just one day they'll stop doing this. I would love to support families to be able to direct their attention to just one thing at a time. Like, what can we do to make this a little bit easier for you? And what can we do? What sort of scaffolding can we put around this predictable problem to support that family out of it, essentially? And now the tricky part is that as parents, we can't tell our kids what the answer to that predictable problem is, because I don't know if you've noticed, but kids with ADHD hate being told what to do. Right? Everyone hates being told what to do, but particularly we don't want to tell our children, because if you go, hey, you know what, I think you should do this, they're going to be like, I'm never going to do that ever. So thank you for ruling out that suggestion. So I have a little chart that I'll put in to the show notes for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I'll take you through the steps, and then I'll show you how I apply it to the brushing teeth example. Now, I also want to preface this that I'm wrong all the time. And it's a real shame because I'm trained in this. Like, I've done so much study on ADHD, and I like to assume of why my children are having these challenges. And it's absolutely baffling to me that I'm often quite wrong about why the challenges are happening. So this is the importance of why it's really good to be able to know how to coach your kids, not just assume. Now, because my little guy has sensory processing disorder, when he had trouble brushing his teeth, I assumed it's because it was a sensory thing. And well, I'll show you in the example as we go through why I was so wrong and why we shouldn't assume, and how that led to wasting a whole lot of money and time. So the first step in our predictable problems chart, which I've got for you, is the empathy step. Now, this is where we ask our child about it when they're regulated. So this is not something you do in the heat of the moment. This is when they're regulated. Now, my children are the most regulated when I'm really tired and they're just about to go to bed. That's when they're like, let's chat about the meaning of the world. Now we're open to it. Not all the rest of the time where mum had full cognitive capacity. No, now when she's really tired, that's when we're going to do it. So we've got to be open to that. So we've got our little chart. So we've got the purpose of the empathy step is to really understand what it's like in their shoes. Not what we think it should be like, not our assumptions on it, to really understand. And then we want to ask them why they think it's occurring. So what do they think? Why is it happening? And we really want to parrot back some of what we hear. Ask clarifying questions. This is the coaching coming in. Really showing that we understand what their experience is. Because so often we miss this bit and we jump straight to problem-solving mode. And like, we've all had that experience when you've voiced a concern to someone and they've just gone, well, you know what you should do? You should do this. And you're like, well, thanks for nothing. Like, you've just totally invalidated my experience. How could you possibly know what I'm going through? So we want to sit there. We want to sit longer there than we think is necessary because it's important. And then we're allowed to voice our concerns there. So after this step, so we can talk about, from our point of view. So for the teeth brushing example, I would say to Harvey something like, can you tell me a little bit about what's going on for you? I've noticed that you're having a bit of trouble brushing your teeth. Like, I'd love to make this easier for you. Tell me what's going on for you. And I'm listening, I'm reflecting back, I'm really understanding what it's like from his point of view. And then I'd be like, well, the thing is, my concern is I'm really worried that in the future, like I need to have lots of dental work, and I know how painful that is. And I'd really like to spare you from that. Or whatever my concern is would be where I'd raise that. And then the next one is to collaborate with your child. Now, this is bringing in Ross Green's method of, kids, well, if they can, we collaborate with them to come up with solutions. But I vary it slightly because he only goes for one solution. And I've learned from experience that with ADHD that we're very all or nothing, black or white. So if you only come up with one solution, then if that doesn't work, that's all off. We need to do the whole wheel. We need to start again. We need to do something really dramatic, right? So we want to encourage them to come up with 3 different solutions. Now, I've also learned that my kids will throw a bogus solution in there because they'll go for something that gets laughs first, and that's fine. I will run that. I will run it. But what I'm trying to do is not to teach them to be problem solvers, because the ADHD brain is excellent at problem solving, especially for other people. I'm turning that back around.
Yeah.
Right? And to teach them that life is going to throw a whole lot of predictable problems their way. And I don't want it to knock them over. I just want them to be curious about it and go, that's interesting. This is a predictable problem. What am I going to do about it? Like, what sorts of things can I try and experiment with? There's no pass or fail. There's no black or white here. What we can do is just experiment, and that's information of what works and what doesn't work. And so the next step of collaborating with our kids, that's where we're asking them to come up with those solutions, and then we're documenting what works, because remember, success leaves clues, because we want to know what it is. So in the toothbrushing example, I went in with secretly thinking, well, I know this because I'm an ADHD coach, right, and I've worked with all these families. This is a sensory thing. So I had different toothbrushes and different toothpaste and everything, that I was ready. I was ready for the sensory thing to come out. Anyway, it turns out that was wrong. It was the barrier, because when we're talking parenting, when we want to encourage a behavior, we remove barriers. And when we want to discourage a behavior, we add barriers. Right? So the barrier that I needed to remove wasn't sensory. It was actually that he just didn't like walking back upstairs. So in his brain, when he got up in the morning, he came straight down the stairs to have breakfast. And then the barrier was, at that time, he just didn't want to go back up because that felt like backtracking. And that came out when we were workshopping it in this predictable problems chart. And I was like, oh, okay, so what can we do to make that easier for you? And he was like, we came up with a whole lot of solutions, but the first one was put the toothbrush in the middle of the dining room table, visual, line of sight, straight after we eat. And that is where it is staying. Now, does that please me aesthetically? No, it doesn't. But I don't care, because it's a predictable problem solution and it makes it easier for him. And I want him to make the environment work for him, which is why I love your work, Narelle. You're making the environment work for you, and it puts it straight in his line of sight, gets that task done. And you can see that if I'd gone and assumed it was a sensory thing and got him to try all the different toothbrushes and all the different toothpastes, and we still would have been stuck in that predictable problem, and we still would have had that daily frustration because I didn't know what the barrier was that I needed to do for him.
Yep. And I love that. That's a perfect example, because that's exactly the work that I do. It's asking those questions because you're not a parent of the child. You're probably more curious. So you're not going to make those assumptions straight away. That's in the back of your mind. Maybe it's sensory. Maybe it's about you need an intentional double because it is too far. So, yeah, I just love that it was from your own family experience to have that example of a predictable problem that you've never been able to solve by just changing where it's being lived now, like where it's actually living, that whole functional element, isn't it?
Yes, and think about time. Like when we're talking about time, that battle of brushing teeth was a 40-minute battle every day. Now it's no battle. That's 40 minutes of my life that I've gotten back, right? That's 40 minutes of his life that he's gotten back via one environmental change. And this is the part that we are missing. for ADHD support. Like the low-hanging fruit, the easiest change to make, because everyone goes for like, we've got to, like most people think, we've got to like help the child improve skills and stuff like that. Like first, before we address behavior stuff and all of that stuff, is actually environment. Go for that first. That's the easiest change that we can make, because it's the easiest one that when we're talking about ignition and momentum, we can start to build momentum from environmental changes. And it's the one that will lead to last. And it really is the quickest, easiest, funnest one. We go for that first to be able to support people to get momentum for other areas.
That's great. I do. You've just made me think of an example that I've implemented recently, because it was a similar thing. And I asked my son, why are you not coming down when the dinner's ready? I'll call out. And he's like, it's your voice. I can't handle your voice. And I was like, okay. And I'd heard Liz Carlaw talk about the doorbell theory, like her doorbell. So I went to Bunnings, bought the $10 doorbell a couple of months ago, implemented it, put it in his bedroom, showed him, I'll press the doorbell. You don't have to hear my voice. No one else will hear it. It's just in your room, and then you can come out. And it just works wonders. I press the doorbell and he magically appears, and the rest of the family are like, what have we done? What is it? And I just said he doesn't like my voice yelling. I don't like my voice yelling either, but now we just have the doorbell and he comes down, gets his dinner. So he doesn't always necessarily sit with us, depends on sensory needs, but just he'll come down, and it's not cold then either, because that was part of the problem. So yeah, just that's one little thing. But if I hadn't have asked, I wouldn't have found that out, and it would have been just another that problem would have kept going.
It's going, right? Can I share a strategy about
yes.
You just sparked my curiosity about this one. It's in my household, we have a double-story house, right? And I do a lot of yelling, right? We've got this void that I can yell to the kids for their bedroom, and no one would listen. And it's really annoying as a mum. Like when your son was saying, like, he doesn't like the sound of my voice, like my kids would absolutely tell you the same thing. It's so, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a very humbling experience to be a parent. So what I noticed is that when my husband, because he's a driver, he's not often here, he's on the road a lot. When he yelled, everyone would go, "Yes, Dad." And I was like, how much does that sting that they listen to him but not me? And so I worked out a strategy to tune them back into my voice, right? So I only yell for praise, right? So I still yell, but I yell for praise. So I'll yell like, Xavier, you're awesome. Or I was like, Xavier, I love it how you like did that dirt bike thing on the weekend. So I'm tuning them back in, because they're now recognizing that when I yell, it's something good, right? It's ice cream or praise or like something exciting, right? So it's just like me with the phone. I've associated my mobile phone with being something like people asking me for things. I like dread that phone ringing, right? But so they were doing the same, but with my yelling. And so if I need them to do something, and this is a more taxing strategy for me, but this is what I will do to tune them back into my voice if I want them to answer. I have to go and find them, and I put my hand on their shoulder and I ask them to do the thing, right? And it's annoying because I have a 2-story house and I really don't want to walk up the stairs, but it works. That's an easy strategy. Only yell for praise. If you need to make a demand, we go up and we find them and put their hands on their shoulder to get their attention. So for all the poor mums that are listening going, well, they don't listen when I yell out. They don't do anything. It's because we yell out with boring, monotonous, demanding things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. I like that. I'm going to be doing that positive yelling now to replace and change that, because I agree with you when my husband would do it, but he does less words as well is the other thing. I would use way too many words for come to dinner. Dinner's ready. It wasn't just dinner's ready. The lasagna's here. Yeah. Come on. So yes, less words is really important as well, isn't it?
Yes.
And so why do we need to look at the whole family rather than just worrying about the kids or whoever it is, the one person in the family that potentially has ADHD? Like, how's it impacting the whole family?
I think that, we know that usually it's not just the one family member with ADHD, like whether diagnosed or not. There's probably multiple. But also I think that how a family runs is super important. So families can feel good to be in. They can also feel like a war zone. And I know from my own family, like before I had the skills to navigate what was going on, like we've got just so much going on in our house that it runs at a very intense level, that I'd be sitting there crying in the kitchen, like on the floor of the kitchen because I didn't like the kids seeing me cry. And we'd be getting holes punched in the wall, and there was just so much dysregulation and conflict and everything like that, that I was just throwing everything at my kids. So I think the whole family, supporting the whole family unit is actually it's an awesome angle to take it at, because everyone needs capacity, everyone needs room to shine, and for most people, home is their safe space, right? Where they can relax and let it all hang out. Now, what was happening in my family is home was the war zone. So when I came back to home, I'd pause at the front door and I'd have to like take a few deep breaths because I knew what was waiting for me on the other side of the door, and it wasn't good, right? And it was the same. It was a predictable problem everywhere. There was predictable problems flying everywhere. And so we need to have a whole family support. Number one, because there's probably a few different profiles going on there. There's different coping mechanisms. There's different traumas. There's different experiences and different ways of emotionally regulating. And there's a whole sequence of really boring tasks that as a family we go through all the time, like meal prep and washing and brushing teeth and homework and like all of that stuff that we've got to move through. So the family support is looking at the easiest ways that we can get through that stuff as quickly and easy as possible so that we can leave brain space for what we're good at. And say the difference between like an ADHD coach and a psychologist. Is it okay if I explain that?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's helpful because I think that it's important to know what people are trained in. So an ADHD coach or a credentialed, we want our ADHD coaches to have ADHD specific training and to be credentialed with the International Coaching Federation. I'm a PCC credentialed families trained coach. And they need to have that training. What we're trained in is executive function challenges. So that Brown model that we spoke about earlier, that's exactly what we're trained in. Whereas a psychologist is trained when we absolutely need great psychologists in our families' lives. Like psychology support for humans with ADHD, we need it. It's like, especially as we're navigating teenage years and all of that, all the emotional turmoil that comes along with all of that stuff, we absolutely want a good psychologist in our corner. But they're trained in the why, the emotional reasons underneath things, trauma, the emotional strategies. We're not trained in that. We're trained in the how, the practical everyday skill stuff to build executive function. So we're trained in executive function frameworks. And we're also not trained in telling people what they should do. Because you say should. It's never going to happen, right?
No.
So we're really coaching people to uncover where their strengths are and see if we can pull that across to some of their challenges. So that's our unique method of being able to support families with ADHD, is to look at what those predictable problems are, what executive function challenges is that family experiencing, and how can we just make that step by step a little bit easier, so that family has a little bit of space, a little bit more room for joy, and is able to experience their family life whatever way suits them. To be honest, it's not important what my family does. It's that unique family.
Yeah, it's like all about your values. What do you value that you want to be able to do that maybe those predictable problems are stopping from occurring? Yeah. Oh, it's so fantastic talking to you. I could talk to you all day, especially I love the examples, because the examples I think just really help with people to then look at the surroundings and the predictable problems that possibly their family are encountering at the moment. And maybe there's those simple solutions that they can come up with as a family to work with. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, what is the best way that they can contact you, and the things that you're offering at the moment as well? Like how do you support people?
Oh, amazing. Thank you. And I've loved our chat today. So my website is thefunctionalfamily.com. We have a free support group. I do free parent training every month. We have the ADHD Families podcast, which you've been on. Go and listen to Narelle's episode. It's amazing. I'm sure we'll link it here in the show notes too. And we've got a 6-week program for parents of newly diagnosed primary school age children. We've got a membership which has group coaching and support, and there's just a lot that we do. Basically, I create products for stuff and support for things that I would have really valued and really would have saved me a lot of time earlier on in our family's journey, and different ways to just buy it back a bit of capacity for families. So just like the predictables problem chart that we're going to include for your listeners, anything that I can do to help it make it a little bit easier, I will do. I'm very motivated by saving time and creating a bit more space. So that have a look, get involved in the community, because it's there, that tribe is there. And I know from my own journey that it can feel quite isolating when you're getting negative feedback from everyone. You know, it all means well, but there's all these little micro moments of just getting a little bit of feedback, a little bit of negative feedback, a little bit of negative feedback, and I feel quite isolating. And it doesn't need to be that way. You've just got to be in the right tribe, in the right community, and so you can learn to advocate for your family and what they need, and operate in a way that suits you by going one predictable problem at a time. Like let's just make life a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit easier, and a little bit more space, and honouring how every family member's brain works, like uniquely, because life's too short to waste time doing anything else.
Yeah, no, I love that. Love that last part that you've just shared with you. And like I said, you said just before, which I forgot to mention, your podcast. We'll definitely link to that so that people can go and listen to all your guests. It's just amazing. There's so many wonderful people, as well as your own solo episodes on ADHD. So if anyone wants more information in regards to ADHD and all the strategies around assisting families, they can definitely go and do that. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you, Narelle. Always so lovely chatting with you.
Thank you for joining me for today's Simply Happy conversation. Sick of wasting time looking for your keys, wallet, or that one charger that always disappears? Your space needs visual anchors. Grab the ADHD-friendly organisation checklist, a 10-minute setup, a weekly reset, and troubleshooting map to adapt your space. Create an environment that works with your brain so that you can stop losing or forgetting things and start leading on time with your sanity. Head to simplyhappy.com.au and click on the resource tab to get instant access today. I'd like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation on which this podcast is recorded as the traditional custodians of the land. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.